Hello, are you out there? It's Mark with Homebrew Fever Dreams Reviews here. And we've got Homebrew Alatreon. This is coming from Outrageous Maximum. And this is a creature. So we usually get a lot of subclasses, but it's nice to get a creature in here as well. Although, who is it? Hot Army's gotten us a creature too, right? And they do their own little sketches, which are pretty cool. Pencil drawings. Alatreon is a creature from the Monster Hunter series. It is an endgame black dragon that is known for using all of the elements. I wanted to recreate this monster for D&D, primarily based on the Iceborne version. I understand that the HP is pretty high. I have started to DM recently and know that a party of 4 to 6 adventurers can dish out a lot of damage if there's only one target, and this is my solution. But bear in mind that I have never played at the level a party would encounter this, 15 to 20. Neither have I, so to be really honest. And my intent would be that it is fought by itself for 7 to 12 rounds. I'm going to do my best to review and give you commentary on this, but I honestly don't know. What I do know, though, is getting a battle to last for 7 to 12 rounds is not easy. I could maybe see 7, 8, 9 rounds, make it to the 10th, 11th, and 12th. Your party's resources, I mean, they're going to be burning through their highest level spell slots. Every fighter's going to use all the action surges. It's all going to be on the table. These guys are going to be digging through their backpacks looking for like a common healing potion by the time you get to the 9th round of combat. So I don't know what's going to happen. The problem is that this dragon, I bet you, doesn't use up any of those resources outside of its hit points, and every one of its specials is going to get triggered over and over for maximum effect. So it's going to be a war of attrition, but that's what you want. So let's see what happens. I made a previous version of this that was CR20 and had more mechanics from the fight, but for this version I simplified it a bit. Thank you. Though it is still pretty complex. Most of this sheet is just a variety of elemental attacks. I have 2 elemental special attacks for each of its 5 elements. They give it the flavor of an elemental master, but do not make this page much longer. Appreciate it. As anyone who's been following the reviews channel for the last few months knows, when we get too far into the weeds, it's hard to get through because no one's going to be able to hold it in their head. So, yeah, we condense it down a little bit. I appreciate it. Here we are, the Alatreon. Gargantuan dragon, chaotic neutral. It's important that it is not evil aligned, although it is a black dragon. So armor class 20, which is high. Not insanely high, but you're definitely going to be having your melee ranged combatants missing on occasion, which is fine. Hit points 700, speed 60 on the ground, 60 flying. So it's very mobile, although not insanely swift. The 700 hit points is a boatload. Is tons of damage. Okay, saving throws. A +6 to int, +9 on wisdom. I'm sure that'll be coupled with some legendary resistances, I would imagine. It's always good to have a couple of those in your pockets with the big boss monster, just so that it doesn't get banished, right? I mean, that's one I could think of where it'd be like, okay, well, the fight's on pause, tick-tock. And if the thing's from the prime material plane, you can't just permanently banish it with that. So, skill. Arcana +6 and Perception +9. Okay. Damage resistances. I like the Arcana +6 because if you had a cause to roleplay with it to help identify or explain some magical mysteries going on in the world, there's that ability there for the dragon to be able to answer best on its own Arcana check knowledge, or to recognize a spell or effect, an item being used against it by the party. So I think that makes sense. Although as a DM, you can always just by fiat just say they know or they don't know. But yeah, sometimes you leave it to the dice, so you're surprised as a DM. Because remember, DM, you're playing too. You're also a player, in a sense. Damage resistances, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical attacks, force, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, thunder. Interesting choices. But not like fire and ice? Okay. Maybe the different elemental modes. I'm just thinking of like if you switch into like frost mode, obviously the creature is going to be immune to frost, right? So, uh, how about this? I would say when you write it out this way, maybe put like a little asterisk, maybe others, whatever, whatever. I'm just questioning it immediately based off the brief description you've given me, but it's fine. It's fine. We'll keep going. Conditions, immunities, charmed and frightened. Okay, I think that's not unreasonable for an innately magical creature such as a dragon. Senses, normal. Passive perception, 19. Whoa. We're saying no dark vision, no true sight, no tremor sense. Interesting. Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. Invisibility would work then? Yeah. Very interesting. Languages can understand but not speak primordial. Fascinating. Okay. Challenge 20. Proficiency bonus a +6. So here we go. We got a big +7 on strength, immensely strong, +6 on dex, which is surprising to me actually. I could see a gargantuan creature not having a +6, but yeah, that's your choice. Okay. It's going to make it a lot easier for it to make saves against, dex-based saves it needs to make, against fireballs or whatever, lightning bolts. Con is a big +7. Int +0. Not particularly smart. And I would say that's attributable to the fact that it is an elemental force of a sense, right? Dragons are all prime-material plane creatures, as far as I know the lore. This dragon just happens to tap into two elemental planes, I'm guessing, channeling the energy through them, right? But it is like it's smart like a rock is smart. Meaning it's not very smart. Wiz +3. Okay, so that's not bad. I would guess that means just a survival instinct kind of thing. I mean, a +3 is a high wisdom for sure, but I mean, I think there are some straight up animals that can't speak at all that have wisdoms that high. And then finally, a +9 on charisma. I guess that's just the innate awe of such a massive and awe-inspiring creature, thus the awe. So it's awesome. +9. It's just, I'm out of coffee. It's not going to get any better, folks. I'm going to get more coffee after this. Features, legendary recovery. When Alatreon is blinded, exhausted, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, stunned, it recovers from that condition after 2 rounds. I like that. That's an elegant solution. Very nicely done. Because what you're essentially saying is that, yeah, you can get this thing petrified. You can poison it to give it disadvantage on its attack rolls. You can stun it, meaning it's just incensed there for a moment. But it's not going to lock it down permanently. It's going to recover after 2 rounds. I like that. I could even see writing in there and that it can't be affected by the same effect for the next 24 hours. Potentially. That way you don't have someone who could do blindness or poison and just reapply it over and over and just continue to lock the creature that way. That might not be a bad touch. Kind of like saying that it somehow it adjusts and corrects for whatever the effect is, the weakness, it is no longer vulnerable to it for a time. Like that it builds up an instant immunity over those 2 rounds. Something like that. You could color it that way. Maybe. Legendary resistance once a day. If Alatreon fails a saving throw, it can choose to succeed again. So a single legendary resistance, that's fine. I could see giving it 2. I could see giving it 3. Especially if you want this to go to like that, 8th, 9th, 10th round of combat. Maybe. I mean, at level 20, you're going to have some powerful characters. Wizards coming in there, rolling in with like 7th, 8th, 9th circle spells. I would go with 3 on that legendary resistance. Why not? I mean, you've already given the creature 700 hit points. You've get a legendary recovery, which is a great idea. I would give it 3 legendary resistances. It's not too many. The players kind of know to expect that. That's not uncommon for high level bosses. And this is as high level as it gets. And so they got to pick and choose and be clever, try and burn through those resistances, almost like playing a poker game with you, the DM, and be like, all right, here's a 7th circle spell with a pretty serious effect, or I'm going to upcast a lower level spell. Are you going to legendary resist it? And then when you do, you're like, I fooled you. I wanted you because I'm saving my 8th spell slot for this one. And now it's going to get through. Or the party, the players' characters are each going to burn off a powerful effect to burn through the 3 legendary resistances so that then they can heap on their powerful stuff. But yeah, I would bump that to 3 without question. For real. Yeah. Okay. Vulnerable Head. When a creature makes an attack roll against Alatreon, they can take a -5 to their roll in order to attack the head. I like this. The head has the same resistances, except that it is vulnerable to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Okay, hold on. Clarification here. Vulnerable means that it takes double damage, which I'm not confused about. But bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, that is magical? Or that is non-magical in that it simply negates the resistance. If you have a resistance to bludgeon, but you have a vulnerability to bludgeon, non-magical, do they negate and just make normal damage? So all I'm saying is I would take this from non-magical attacks and paste it in right here. The head is vulnerable to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from magical sources. Yeah, I would do that. It is confusing, right? It is confusing. Clarification, please. All right, here we go. Elemental Shift. Alatreon has 2 elemental modes, fire and ice. When the fight begins, choose randomly between fire and ice. Let's flip a coin. Nice. Alatreon remains in that mode for 4 rounds. On the 5th round, Alatreon uses Eschaton Judgment and then enters the opposite elemental mode from what it was previously. So it's going to flip-flop from fire to ice. I like that. And you should be able to get to that 5th round for the Eschaton Judgment. I mean, hopefully 700 hit points. And then you'll probably wrap up on the 2nd cycle, I would imagine, or the first half of the second half of the 1st cycle. Fire mode. Alatreon has the same resistances as normal, except that it is immune to fire, resistant to lightning, and vulnerable to cold. Okay. You didn't mention lightning. You had thunder up there, but not lightning. Okay, I like this. I would definitely, as the DM running a creature like this, put it out there to the players that they might want to make an Arcana or maybe I don't want to say investigation check, maybe something like that. Don't use perception. We use perception all the time. Come up with something clever to, if they make a decent roll, set the DC at like, an 18. If they take an action on a round, one of them to investigate that has a high wisdom or intelligence or whatever, and make it a decent DC check, like I said, 18 or 20, to understand, to observe the creature, like their Arcana check or whatever, and then maybe be able to discern what its weaknesses and immunities are as it changes state. Sometimes as a DM, you can throw that out there because a lot of players are not knowing that, I want to investigate. It's like, okay, that's your action per the rules of the book. And they're not going to want to do that if they don't think there's anything to be gained. So sometimes you want to throw it out there and say, if, on one of your turns, one of you may want to make a check and see if you can glean some information. That's an option. And then they might like talk amongst themselves, the players, and say, well, you're concentrating on the spell right now and your melee attack's cruddy. Just why don't you burn it? You have a good Arcana check. And they're like, oh, all right, I'll do that. And then they take that chance. So there's a risk reward, benefit, detriment possibility there. And that what fun is the mechanics if your players don't know that's what's going on? That's the other thing you risk, is that if you don't make a little bit of this transparent or knowable to your players, then it's just over their head. You're the DM with this cool monster sheet. You're like, this is amazing. There's so much cool stuff. And you gotta lead your players with crumbs, especially with a cool creature like this. You gotta kind of sprinkle it out there and be like, little spoon feed them what is behind the curtain of this creature to bring it to life, to bring the tactical combat to life. Yeah, because you're not gonna have tactics the way you want them in a Monster Hunter style creature if the players don't know the potential's there for that. Okay. DM aside over. On Alatreon's, am I saying this right? Alatreon's turn, roll a d12. On a 1 to 4, use the fire attack. On a 5 to 7, use the lightning attack. And on an 8 to 10, use a draconic attack. And on a 11 to 12, use a water attack. Okay. Ice mode. Alatreon has the same resistances as normal, except it is immune to cold, resistant to acid, and vulnerable to fire. Oh, wow. Okay. The water and the lightning and the acid switch in and out of there. And then we have ice attack is the main. Water attack swaps out for the lightning. Draconic attack is the same. Lightning and water swap. I understand why you did that, and I don't think it's a big deal that you swap lightning and water on these two charts. But functionally, is it identical? A 5, 6, or 7, 3 out of 12. An 11 or 12, it's less common. Okay, I see why you did it. Okay. It's mildly confusing, but I get what you're doing. You're keeping the ranges the same. You're just swapping the element. I can see that getting messed up if you're only ever going to run this creature one time. But ultimately, if people are paying attention to the mode, it shouldn't be that tough. They should refer to the mode that they're in on the chart here and see what happens. Okay, fair enough. Elemental suppression. Alatreon's powerful elemental force builds up into a powerful attack. Forces build up into a... Okay, elemental force. At the beginning of the fight, Alatreon has an elemental threshold of 150 HP. This threshold takes equal damage when Alatreon takes fire, ice, acid, or lightning damage. If an effect on the damage would affect resistance, immunity, or vulnerability, such as an elemental adept feat, ignore that effect when damaging the elemental threshold. Okay, so you're just... It's a clock, essentially. Is that the word? Threshold? Yeah. Okay, you're just tallying up the elemental damage. All of it. From any of those kinds, trying to get to 150, or go from 150 to 0 either way. I think that's what you're saying. If the elemental threshold reaches 0 before Alatreon uses Eschaton Judgment, Eschaton Judgment does 0 damage. After Eschaton Judgment, the elemental threshold resets to 150 again. I see. So this is trying to prevent the party from dallying. And it's trying to encourage them to do elemental damage. Yes, as opposed to just mundane, melee damage or some other kind, force damage or something. Okay, I like that. Additionally, whenever the elemental threshold is reduced to 0 HP, Alatreon is stunned until the end of his next turn. It's an interesting mechanic. This, though, back to what I was saying earlier, the DM, you need to express this somehow to the players. Maybe not in full detail. I understand you don't need to show them all the mechanics, but they need to know that when they're doing the right kind of elemental damage, something special is happening. Like an aura is glowing more around the creature, or the energy coming from between its scales is getting brighter and brighter, or dimmer and dimmer. However, so when they do a force bolt, yeah, it hurts. Some scales fly off. The creature screams out in pain. But when they do some of the elemental damage, this radiance changes. You say it seems more intense in response to your attack, so that your players at least know that something is changing and happening when they're using the 4 key elements, right? This is about DMs running a complex creature. You need to do this storytelling. That's what this is. Storytelling. Okay. Simplification. Thank you. Outrageous. Appreciate it. Alatreon is unaffected by damage from his own attacks and doesn't make opportunity attacks. Okay. Attacks. Fire. Let's just see here. We got cool multi legendary actions, miscellaneous. Okay, wow. We got a bunch here. I don't know if we're gonna get through all of it, you guys, to be quite honest. Okay. So we have fire attacks, water attacks, ice attacks, right? So Alatreon uses 1 of 3 attacks. We have a multi-attack. So yeah, we don't need to get into all these tables, but essentially in fire mode, the Alatreon is going to make a claw, a tail, a projectile, and we'll do fire damage on top of it. Here we have the stats for the claw, the tail, the projectile. I see reach on the claws 10, reach on the tail is 15. This is nice. This allows a single creature to really, excuse me, coffee burp, control and threaten the field of battle. Damage is not overwhelming. Yeah, 2d10s, 2d8s plus 7s. It allows your players to take some hits, but a lot of hits. So it's going to spread out that damage. I bet you there's some more powerful stuff coming up here. A nice projectile attack up to 300-foot range. This prevents the party from just trying to sniper the creature down without engaging. That 300-foot range and the ability to fly. Listen, if the creature is threatened and the party members are trying to keep distance, the creature will just fly up into the sky, dashing away at 150-foot elevation gain until it's beyond longbow range. And then it's just like, see ya. I'm just going to fly out of here. You guys aren't going to face me. But yeah, that projectile range is a nice touch. We do have a couple other specials. That we have a flamethrower attack if it doesn't do the multi-attack, right? If you don't use your multi-attack, you can use your flamethrower attack or your heat wave. Flamethrower is going to be a 300-foot line with the DC save to take half damage. This is big. This is 14d6. Yeah. So you're not... Yeah, that's cool. And then heat wave is going to be AoE. Intense heat. Radiating... what's the range? 50 foot. Holy shoot. Wow. A 50-foot AoE there. That's no joke. 8d6 fire damage and be fire blighted, taking half damage and no blight on a success. Crap, I don't know what fire blighted is. Are we going to get to that? Am I supposed to know what fire blighted is, you guys? Crap. Okay. But I like this. You can just do some straight melees. The fun thing with this is that, there's the chance the creature's going to miss on some, hit on others, get crits. It just mixes it up a bit. But yeah, if you need to roast everyone in a hallway, that 300-foot line, it's a little limited a line. It's not a cone, but it is 300 feet, so it's very long. And then, of course, the heat wave. Yeah. Don't run heat wave over and over, though. You don't want to just AoE your party down instantly. But that's a good way to deal damage to everyone. People like hiding behind the back ranks that think they're safe. No. They're getting cooked alive. All right, here we go. Water attacks. 1 of 3. You've got your multi-attack with an acid base, and it's got the 2 specials, Tidal Wave and Bubble Stasis. So Alatreon summons a large wave that encompasses everything within 300 feet, and it moves in a direction of choice. So a 300-foot wall moving away for how far? 300-foot square? 300 by 300 foot square. Is that what we're talking about? In a given direction. Starts in a line 300 feet and goes 300 feet. If I'm not mistaken. Affected creatures must make a strength save or take the acid damage, be pushed back 40 feet, and be water blighted. Okay. Bubble stasis. Conjures a bubble around a creature within 300 feet. That creature must make a dex save. On a fail, the creature is restrained, water blighted, take some acid damage, and at the beginning of the turns, they try to escape with an athletics check. Nice. Little crowd control for the creature. Very cool. Here we go. Ice attacks uses the multi-attack. It has a cone of cold or a frozen ground. Cone of cold. Alatreon breathes a stream of sub-zero air. Each creature within a 60-foot cone must make a dex save or take cold damage, be ice blighted. Frozen ground. Alatreon freezes the ground in a 20-foot radius circle. A little Discord message popping up there. 20-foot radius circle within 300 feet. So this is going to be a 20-foot diameter circle out to a range of up to 300 feet away. Any creature touching the ground in that area must make a dex saving throw, take cold damage, be ice blighted, and be restrained. The creature can use this action to attempt to escape with a strength check. The ground in the circle becomes difficult terrain for 1 minute. Okay, this is a lot of versatility here. A lot of different things, very creative mechanics, and I think it could really mix up the fight very nicely. We're on to our lightning attacks. Obviously, you have your lightning multi-attack option. You have the lightning storm, and you have the charged area. Lightning storm is simply going to be calling down lightning. Each creature within 200 feet rolls d6 on odds. Nothing happens. On evens, the creature is struck by lightning. Wow. Okay. That's a 200-foot radius around the dragon? That's like a massive AoE, but it's a 50-50. They'll get struck by lightning. That's intense. And there's no dex save. You get struck or you don't. Wow. Interesting. Interesting concept. That's like truly a pretty original attack mechanic for what I've seen in D&D 5e. Charged area. Alatreon creates a charged area in a 50-foot line within 100 feet. So, right? They're choosing 2 points within 100 feet, but the 2 points are 50 feet away from each other, and it creates a line between the two. Interesting concept. If another creature tries to enter or pass that line before the beginning of Alatreon's next turn, they must make a DC 20 investigation check. On a success, they know the area is dangerous and can change their movement to accommodate. On a failure, they walk into it, get struck by lightning. 10d12 and are thunder blighted. Nice. Oh my god. It's like a positive and negative pull. And when they cross it, they are lowering the resistance in the air over that area by their own body, making a bridge, and the charge jumps the gap through them. A little physics at play. Very cool. Draconic attacks use one of the three. So the draconic attacks are like in lieu of one of the elemental attacks. So we have draconic multi-attack, which is just going to be 2 claws and a tail. And a charisma save would be dragon blighted. Again, I don't know what that is. Dragon dash, shockwave, eschaton judgment. We better recheck it. Dragon dash. Alatreon coats itself in energy and runs up to its movement, which is 60 feet in a straight line. All creatures in that line must make a DC 17 save or take 10d4 force damage and be dragon blighted. 10d4. That's a lot of 4-sided dice to roll, my friend. That's all right. Shockwave. Alatreon bursts with draconic energy. Every creature within 50 feet of Alatreon must make a DC charisma saving throw or take 8d10 force damage to become dragon blighted. And here's the eschaton judgment we were talking about before. Now, this is going against that elemental clock, 150 to 0. You're trying to get it down as much as possible. It'll grant you the effect of stunning Alatreon for a turn, which is helpful, or until the start of this next turn, I think. On the 5th round of being in fire or ice mode, so at the beginning, so 4 turns of fire or 4 turns of ice, 5th turn, the eschaton judgment starts. Alatreon goes critical. Alatreon recovers from all conditions, nice, and uses this attack. Each creature within 1,000 feet of Alatreon takes damage equal to the remaining HP on the elemental threshold, which cannot be reduced in any way. Alatreon then switches to the opposite element. So at the beginning of the 5th round for Alatreon, they do the eschaton judgment, if they have any in the bank. And at the end of that 5th round, they switch. So on the beginning of their 6th round, they're now in the new ice mode. I mean, that's how it's not written exactly that way, but that's how I'm reading it. Starting, ending. Very cool. And if your players have made it through the 5th round, they have an idea now what's going to happen on rounds 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which will be another eschaton judgment. And by then, you've gotten through 10 rounds of combat, if they get that far. Interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot to this. Got a couple legendary actions, some miscellaneous. We're almost done here, folks. So real quickly, legendary actions. Alatreon can take 3 legendary actions, choosing from the options below. Only 1 legendary action can be used at a time and only at the end of another creature's turn. I think that's boilerplate. Regains spent legendary actions at the start of its turn. It cannot use them on the round after Eschaton Judgment. The round after Eschaton Judgment. A full round. Yeah? So Eschaton Judgment is going to start at the start of Alatreon's 5th or 10th round of combat. And until the start of Alatreon's next turn, that whole round, it cannot use any legendary actions. Good to know. Hard to remember as a DM if you've been popping the legendary actions everywhere, but it is like a breather. Then that Eschaton Judgment is like, when that happens, it's a pretty serious effect if it fires off. I mean, hopefully they've gotten the HP down to like 8 or something. It's not a big deal. They timed it right. But yeah, that's an important note. None of these legendary actions are going to happen on that whole round there. Okay. Clawtail. Alatreon makes one of those attacks with the bonus element. Clawtail variant costs 2 actions. Alatreon makes one of those attacks with its choice of elemental bonus. Okay. If it knows someone has a weakness or something? Or okay. Roar. 3 actions. Alatreon releases a deafening roar. Every creature within 100 feet must make a DC Constitution saving throw or take 46 thunder damage and become deafened for 1 minute on a failure. Interesting. Okay. Just a frightful roar. Just an animalistic cry. Here we go. Some miscellaneous. Blights. Blights all last for 3 rounds and can be healed with lesser restoration. Blights are a kind of lingering elemental energy. Fire Blight. The character takes 2d6 fire damage at the start of their turns. Okay. Water Blight. The character cannot recover HP. Ice Blight. The character's movement speed is halved. Thunder Blight. If the character takes damage, they must make a DC 16 Constitution save or be stunned until the end of their next turn. The first time a Thunder Blighted creature takes damage each round, they do not have to make this save. Oh, nice. Dragon Blight. The character cannot deal elemental damage, non-bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing. Anytime they would, reduce the damage to 0. Interesting. Note, any damage caused by water counts as elemental acid damage for the threshold. That's a good note. That is a good note. This is getting tricky here, though. I like the mechanic, but and I know you've probably simplified this for us to post here. The Fire Blight, the Water Blight, the Ice Blight, the Thunder Blights. Even in ice or if it was just ice or fire mode and you either were ice blighted or fire blighted, then for that whole 4 rounds of combat, these players are going to slowly get blighted by that given thing, would have an effect. But the way you're rolling the D12, there's quite a few different blights that can happen. And now you've got different players with different blights. So there's 2 things I would recommend. That you can only have 1 blight on you at a time. First of all, you wouldn't want a player to have to deal with more than 1 blight. Just people are going to forget. 3 rounds into combat, and you're supposed to be like, oh, but you were fire blighted, remember? And they're like, oh, fuck. Yes, okay, yeah, I penciled that here. All right. Don't make someone deal with 2 different blights at once. Just don't. You're taking a lot of work for the DM already. And now you're making work for the players. All the players. Listen, obviously there's plenty of effects in D&D 5e where players like, oh, that's right, I'm poisoned, disadvantage on my attack roll. I got to remember, and I haven't cured the poison yet. And so as the DM, you're reminding your players of the effects that are on them. And as the player, you're trying to remember the effects that are on you. But this fight is essentially saying everyone's going to have one of these blights. There's like the way that the dragon works. And it's going to be pretty much every turn you got to be contending with one of these. You have 5 different types of blights. You haven't specified they can't stack, although I would 100% make sure they can't stack. You're making every player have to do extra work now, as well as trying to keep the mechanics of the fight in their mind. Listen, this could be a great fight. This could be the best fight anyone's ever had in all the years of role playing, admittedly. But the details and the minutia are hard to remember, especially if you're playing with 4 or 5 players, and your turn's not going to come around for 20, 30 minutes, which is going to be the case because this is complex. It's a complex creature with complex effects, and everyone's trying to remember. It's like, oh, wait, will this do? And then I'm adjusting the Escalon counter thing. 132 minus 18 points of damage. Now it's 114, So the DM's keeping track of all this work. The players are keeping track of all this work. I think if you allow the time for it, and that on every turn, you tell every player, remember your blights, take them into account. The counter isn't this. I think you almost have to peel back the curtain and have tokens that you're handing people. Here, you're fire blighted. Here's a dragon blight token. And you set it in front of them. And that all of you together, if you go into this battle and say, guys, in the meta, this is an extremely mechanical fight. There's a lot to remember. Work together. It is going to be part of the challenge is that, I know we all want to role play, but for the fight, it's going to be massive amount of tactics. It's almost like a mini game within the game. Are you guys willing to play it together? Are we all on board? It's probably going to take the entire session. This is going to be like a 3 or 4 hour battle. And everyone's like, yeah, DM, we give you the buy-in. We're going to meta this together. We're going to remind each other of our blights. We're going to keep track of the counters. And do it that way. Because if you have people who are just trying to role play it out, it's like, I roar and primal rage and charge in. And everyone else is like, no, wait. That's not the right thing to do. We need an elemental this because the eschaton counter, you're going to set it to 0. It's going to reset before the 5th turn. And then when the 5th turn comes around, it's going to be eschaton judgment, but he's going to be back up into the 140s and we're all going to get wiped out. And that level of banter has to be happening between the players and the DM. You guys need to work together. DM and players will literally have to metagame together to run this battle properly. Because it's going to really piss people off if the Rune Knight casts a level 3 fire attack with his sword as he runs in there and drops that eschaton counter from an 8 past 0 and resets that mother humper to 150 towards the end of the 4th round of combat. And then when that eschaton judgment goes off on level 5 at 142 points of damage and wipes out half the party, all the clothies, down. No way to mitigate it? Yeah. You're making a game within a game with a fight like this. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it could be very interesting, very memorable, but you got to get the buy-in from your players. I will continue. This is massively long. Description. Okay, here we go. Alatreon has black upturned scales backlit with colorful elemental energy. Its tail is thick. It has 2 twisted forward-facing horns atop its head, like a crown, and it has a beak-like mouth. Alatreon pulses with an aura of heat or cold. Alatreon is a dragon of unknown origin that shares many more features with elementals than any true dragon yet. It is native to the material plane. It typically lives in secluded areas, only really moving around the world changing planar activity, which it seems to sense in advance. As far as behavior, Alatreon acts the way you would expect an animal that is curious, surprisingly intelligent, and bigger than anything else to act. However, Alatreon has spouts of severe pain from its unstable elements, which often causes it to lash out at anything nearby. That's good motivation, yeah. During battle, Alatreon does a better job of controlling its elemental power and steadily builds up either heat or cold before unleashing it as a devastating wave powerful enough to kill elementals made up of the same energy, the Eschaton Judgment. This is partly because Alatreon's primal essence came from the primordials directly. There you go. Nice. Yeah, that's good. Backstory? What the hell am I? Mythos? Yeah. Regional effects. The area within 10 miles of Alatreon's lair is racked with elemental chaos. Portals to any elemental plane can appear spontaneously, and elementals of the most powerful levels are common. Zones ranging from 10-foot pockets to mile-wide areas typically exhibit one primary element. This with areas of blistering heat, frigid cold, immense static, and torrential range. If Alatreon is in fire or ice phase, the region is engulfed in heat or cold, respectively. If Alatreon uses Eschaton Judgment, every creature in the region takes 1d6 fire or cold damage within 10 miles. Oh my god. That would kill every mouse, butterfly, bird. Oof. A dead zone. Holy shite. That's a devastating effect for the environment. Environmentally. Oh my gosh. You wouldn't want to do that in the Sylvan Elves forest. You will depopulate their forest. Oh. All elemental creatures avoid getting close to Alatreon. I will end it there. 40-minute video. Thank you so much. I'll post this.